audience. Uh, so I'm starting a series that I'm calling Colonial Games, and yeah, I don't want to say too much. I think you'll understand what this series is or deals with exactly as it sort of progresses. But I've got a couple of things that I want to share with you today, and just to help you better understand that we're living in a colonial world where truth or the truth does not matter. The truth doesn't matter, not because the truth isn't important to you and I, no, but because those who seek power use propaganda, misinformation, bullying tactics, economic oppression, economic colonialism over truth. So having the truth is not enough to overcome colonialism, and particularly in our era, neo-colonialism. Having the truth with you is not enough, guys. It takes more than that to overcome what we are dealing with in this generation, this colonial, this neo-colonial era. It takes a lot of courage, bravery, strategy. It takes being very deliberate about what your objectives are. So let me just quickly open with this video, quick fast.
And you're wondering why we don't have Starlink yet, even though it's available in other countries. Everyone online is saying it's because of BEE, and that the government is so corrupt that they won't allow us to have fast and affordable internet unless they can get a piece of the pie. Let me explain the real reason we don't want Starlink here. It's not because of BEE, it's about national security. Starlink isn't just an internet service provider. It's a monopoly owned by a billionaire from the United States of America. If Starlink is allowed into the country without proper regulation, it will destroy local internet service providers. And once Starlink becomes the only ISP in South Africa, we'll be in serious trouble. Imagine one company, one American company, controlling internet access across our entire country. The next time we say something the US doesn't like, or if we take a political position they don't agree with, such as taking Israel to court for genocide, they will shut down our internet. If you don't believe me, look what happened to Ukraine. They have Starlink, and when negotiations over critical mineral resources were not favoring the Americans, one of the threats that the USA brought to the table was to shut down Ukraine's internet access. If you hate Eskom's load shedding, imagine if we had an internet blackout every time Elon Musk throws a tantrum. So ask yourself this: why would any responsible government hand over the nation's internet access to a foreign private company? No country which is serious about its future would ever do something like that. BEE compliance is just an excuse. The real reason we don't want Starlink here is because we actually want to remain a sovereign country. So no, it's not about protecting corrupt government officials or blocking competition. It's about not being stupid enough to give the US government a kill switch to our digital economy.
Yeah. So, guys, if you pay close attention to what's happening in South Africa right now, you'll see that the people that are most or that are happiest about having Starlink in the country are the whites, right? White people have been pushing for us to have Starlink, advocating for it over and over and over. And the reason they're such massive proponents of Starlink has nothing to do with granting poor people access to the internet. Listen, if white South Africans cared about the poor, they would have handed over the land by now. If white South Africans cared about creating jobs for the poor in South Africa, they would have handed over the land and the minerals. But they haven't done that. They don't care about black poverty. And black poverty is always used as the tool through which imperialism can thrive. People's misfortunes, people's disadvantages, people's lack of sovereignty is what's used to give colonial countries more power, more access. And the reason Black South Africans have been opposed to Starlink coming into the country is because we know it poses a massive security breach. And for those of you that are saying, who would want to spy on South Africa? South Africa is one of the big geopolitical players in the world. We've got minerals that the US wants. We have minerals that the world wants, and that our colonial masters continue to exploit through companies that they've built during the colonial era. There hasn't been redress in South Africa. BEE is not redress. The people get nothing from that, and the people of South Africa have gained nothing post 94. They've gotten nothing. They're still slaves in a system where the wealth is still kept and hoarded by a minority, a 7% minority, as a result of the legacy of apartheid and 400 years of colonialism. It didn't just start during apartheid. It's not just from 1948 when apartheid was established. No, we're talking about 400 years of colonialism where Black people have been dispossessed of their land and their minerals and their farms and relegated to being nothing more than the working class, nothing more than the slave labor. So we're here to break down colonial games. In other words, I'm here to show you and analyze what is a colonial strategy so that you guys become conscious, especially I'm talking to Black South Africans. You guys need to be aware of what's going on in the country. The ANC is not on your side. The ANC is working in collaboration with the National Party, with the NPA apartheid government, which have rebranded themselves as the DA. That was the arrangement. This is the CODESA deal that we're watching unfold right now. The apartheid government was never out of government. They were always running the state through private entities and private businesses and foreign direct investment, using Black puppets who just wanted a piece of the pie. That's all that's going on here. So Black South Africans are not liberated. They're not free. They don't own anything. You don't own the means of production. You don't have your own land. You don't own the farms. So you are still 100% dependent on your colonial master, and they're not willing to let go of these things without a fight. This is why revolutions are staged and coups d'etats are staged, to take power away from your colonial masters. And so, Black South Africans, it's time to wake up because the time is running out. The Black South African population is being replaced with foreigners, legal and illegal, who are being naturalized and being given expedited South African citizenship to sway votes, to ensure that the Black population gets outnumbered by the number of Black foreign nationals that come into the country, who will inevitably be bought, just like the puppet masters bought the ANC. They will buy these Black foreign nationals coming in who are economic refugees, just looking for a piece of the pie, just like the Black ANC government was looking for a piece of the pie amongst the white ruling elites. Foreign nationals are coming into South Africa with the same conquest, to gain a quick buck. They've got no morality. They've got no culture. They've got nothing behind their characters. Their characters are purely and entirely driven by a capital lust, or a capitalist lust for money. They're economic refugees, and the white ruling class, they've got something for them. All right. And obviously, these foreign nationals that are coming in, they're going to vote along with the National Party to ensure that white supremacy reigns supreme in South Africa. Hence why we always say people preach Pan-Africanism and say that South Africans are xenophobic, and yet we are being betrayed by our so-called fellow brothers and sisters around the continent who are coming in and doing the master's bidding and being used as instruments and tools of neocolonialism in the same way that our puppet government was used and sold out the country, which undermines the sacrifices that our ancestors made to allow us an opportunity to be free in our own land. So thank you, our fellow foreign brothers and sisters around the continent that have come in and compromised our sovereignty and compromised our attempts at trying to liberate ourselves entirely from colonialism They've interrupted that. In fact, they've muddled it up and distracted us instead of supporting and helping us to fight to regain our land, minerals, and resources. So we thank you for that. Calling us xenophobic, framing us, and making us look like bad people to the international world. You're playing right into the hands of the colonial master. You don't even understand. You don't even realize it. All these xenophobia narratives that are being pushed, you're only pushing these to gaslight us because you guys are selfish. And you don't see that South Africans are suffocating. In fact, you do see South Africans are suffocating in their own land, but you don't care. Now, going back to the topic of Starlink coming into South Africa, this is a serious security breach because people don't understand that once you allow America funds wars so that they can pick a side, right? Finance and help that side in their military quest, then try to broker peace and look like they're the peacemakers to the world, but then cut deals under the table with these countries to ensure that they gain something from that war. They profit from wars. They interfere or cause wars, then intervene in the wars and play hero when in actuality they're claiming spoils from these wars that they start. And as nations continue to fight endlessly because of wars that have been started by America and wars that are funded by America, their male population depletes, their military population depletes, and their economies are compromised, which means they need what? Foreign aid. From where? America. We are in the age of neo-colonialism, where America is spearheading the campaign of absolute white dominance all over the world. What we're seeing now play out in South Africa is just a small part of a global agenda for total world domination. The new world order, which is being ushered in through these deals that are being brokered under the table based on these wars that are being instigated by America, that are being financed by America, that are being fueled by America. America is not trying to stop wars, guys. America is trying to cause wars so that they can come in as the heroes that save the day. And through that, they can leverage more exploitative negotiations that put them in an even stronger position in the world. Russia and China are really the only two oppositions that have tried to come against neocolonialism. But what does America keep doing? They keep labeling socialism and communism as dictatorships that don't allow for democracy and freedom. And yet democracy is a disguised dictatorship that is being authored by the colonial master. You guys need to wake up to what's going on in the world. But it's okay. That's why I'm here. Let's have a look. So I started the video with a young man there on TikTok talking about Colonial Games, trying to explain to us that it's not about giving people access to the internet. White people don't care about the poor. And even with these farm murders, they're just being leveraged and used so that Trump and America can gain more access to South Africa over Russia and China. That's the battle right now. It's China or the East versus the West fighting for the South Africa, who plays a key geopolitical process or role in the world. So I wanted to open up with a couple of articles just to show you guys what it means to have Starlink in your country, so that you're under no illusions as to how serious this risk is to South Africa's sovereignty. You guys are mad about load shedding. You're mad about water shedding. You wait until there's a monopoly on internet in the country. And Starlink can not only collect our data, but once the entire world is plugged into this Starlink campaign, even if you protest, they will make sure that there are no other alternatives that can offer what they offer. And they've already started claiming that they are far superior in what they offer. Elon Musk, an absolute Nazi, complete Nazi, right? These guys are Nazis. Nazism didn't end. It just rebranded. Apartheid did not end. It rebranded. Slavery didn't end. It rebranded as employment. People are living in shoe boxes. They can barely breathe. They can barely survive. And the only ones that are living a good life are the ones that have compromised and sold out to the colonizers. But in case you have doubts and you feel like, oh, this is just one big conspiracy theory, why on earth would Starlink want anything from South Africa? Remember, the NP government had a great relationship with America. When the rest of the world denounced apartheid, America was the only one that refused to say that apartheid was wrong. Apartheid labeled Mandela as a terrorist, and all our other activists that fought for the liberation and freedom of South Africa, they were labeled terrorists. Until this day, they have a hard time going to America because they're on the terrorist list. Why? Because they fought for the freedom of the land. America is threatening Ibrahim Traore right now in America. They're trying to label him a terrorist to the world. Any attempt at Black or African liberation, you get labeled a terrorist. And that's how you know you're doing the right thing for your people, when the West calls you a terrorist. And I feel sorry for you if you believe the stories that are coming out of the West pertaining to African people and how we are portrayed by Western media. The West has a goal to create a world monopoly, to control everything. And anybody that comes out of line or falls out of line will be humiliated, will be corrected, and will be oppressed. So let's have a look, for example, what has been happening between Poland, Ukraine, and Russia, and how Starlink has been a major factor in this. And I want you to pay attention to how Elon Musk makes threats. Elon Musk, being a nobody, making threats to actual sovereign nations. It's very telling, and I want us to pay attention to these colonial games. So first up, I'm going to be reading from the Business Insider. Headline: Elon Musk says he'll never turn off the Starlink terminals in Ukraine. Now, we've already exposed that America, along with Elon Musk, are liars, because they said that there was a white genocide in South Africa, which was non-existent. And instead of going to the ICJ to open up a case that proves what they're saying, they instead resorted to using propaganda. So nothing that comes out of these people's mouths should ever be trusted. Look what he says. Let's go. So it says, Elon Musk said on Sunday that he will never turn off Starlink's terminals in Ukraine. To be extremely clear, no matter how much I disagree with the Ukraine policy, Starlink will never turn off its terminals, Musk wrote in an X post on Sunday. We would never do such a thing or use it as a bargaining chip, Musk added. We've just watched Elon Musk and Donald Trump use the white farm genocides as a bargaining chip to override the BEE legislation in South Africa, to bypass them completely and operate in South Africa without compliance. So when he says he'll never use it as a bargaining chip, this immediately is a lie that I'm calling out. Furthermore, Musk's remarks come after Poland's foreign minister, Radosław Sikorski, wrote in an X post on Sunday that his country will be forced to look for other suppliers. And again, the lack of sovereignty of people that are happy to play into the hands of these colonizers. You're on the guy's platform, a platform that has been exposed for using the AI technology called Grok to spread misinformation about white genocide. And you're on his platform. Doesn't it make sense for you to get off these platforms and to boycott all of these platforms that threaten your sovereignty? But look what's happening. It says that we'll be forced to look for other suppliers of satellite internet services if SpaceX proves to be an unreliable provider. Right? That's the foreign minister, Sikorski. I'm only going to say his surname because his name is... Poland was spending about 50 million a year on Starlink services for Ukraine, Sikorski wrote. Be quiet, small man. You pay a tiny fraction of the cost and there is no substitute for Starlink, Musk replied to Sikorski on Sunday. Musk is speaking to the minister who's in government and calling him a small man, telling him to be quiet, essentially bullying him, just like we saw Cyril Ramaphosa get bullied by Donald Trump. This is imperialism on steroids. People in high-ranking positions, right, who are presiding over their countries are being spoken to by the likes of Elon Musk as if they're nothing. Why? This is economic bullying. It's economic colonialism. Sikorski's post also drew a response from Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who said on Sunday that Sikorski was just making things up. That's another lie. So yet again, America just, white people just lie like it's nothing. Lies mean absolutely nothing. They will say whatever to maintain their position of power and spread whatever propaganda they need to deceive the masses, because the masses are gullible enough to believe in the people that are running the show. Furthermore, let's continue. No one has made any threats about cutting Ukraine off from Starlink. And say thank you, because without Starlink, so this is what he says next is a threat. You just said no one's made threats. You're threatening them right now. And say that, and say thank you, because without Starlink, Ukraine would have lost this war long ago, and Russians would be on the border with Poland right now. What an insult. What a complete insult to say that you're only alive and your people are only alive because of our intervention. And mind you, the war being prolonged isn't any better either, because people are still dying and the military is being weakened, particularly the males, the men in the country are being genocided on both sides. And that is a massive plus for America, because they are more than welcoming of having weakened military forces, weakened patriarchal forces in other countries, in rival countries, while they go full-blown patriarchy in America, full-blown steroids of just pure masculine, forceful alpha energy, while weakening the males from other countries and promoting things like feminism to promote matriarchal societies with weak men. It just makes their job in America so much easier to push and propagate for these isms that they preach about, but that they don't live up to. Let me continue. No one has made any threats about cutting Ukraine or from Starlink. And say thank you, because without Starlink, Ukraine would have lost this war long ago. And Russians would be on the border with Poland right now, Rubio wrote. Again, Rubio wrote in an ex-post. Very insulting. Musk's position on Ukraine. Musk was initially supportive of Ukraine when it fought against Russia in the early days of the war. It's all an act, guys. In June 2022, Musk said SpaceX had delivered 15,000 Starlink terminals to Ukraine after Russia's invasion began in February that year. In 2022, Musk also challenged Russian leader Vladimir Putin to single combat over Ukraine and suggested the president could bring his bear to their man-on-man fight. Putin would destroy this nerd, this geek of a dude. But Musk's pro-Ukraine stance has shifted. In October 2022, he posted a peace plan to end the Ukraine war on X. The plan, which called for Ukraine to recognize Russia's annexation of Crimea, was praised by the Kremlin. During a 2024 X Spaces event with GOP senators, Musk said he thought there was no way in hell Putin would lose the war in Ukraine. This spending does not help Ukraine. Prolonging the war does not help Ukraine, Musk said in February 2024, clearly, while calling for the US troops to stop funding Ukraine. So you keep asking for direct foreign investment from your colonizer. So at any time when they're not happy with the way you're functioning, they just cut off your funding. You should be striving and working towards having full sovereignty. Remember, that's what the apartheid government was fighting for. That's why they made Sasol, and that's why they made Denel. So they could have a strong military and have their own supply of everything. That's why they made Eskom. They wanted their own electricity, their own military, their own mining, and they didn't want to be controlled by anyone. They had the apartheid government made 6.5 nuclear bombs. They were ready for war. They were ready for invasion and intervention. But guess who was on their side? America. And where did those 6.5 nuclear bombs go when Mandela was brought into presidency? The apartheid government, NPA, gave those bombs to America. So when you see this relationship between the Afrikaners and the white South Africans in America, it's a long-standing relationship because the Americans supported apartheid. And this is why they're against what South Africa did when they opened a case against Israel at the ICJ, because that is real genocide, what's happening. And America is a supporter of apartheid and a supporter of oppression of people that they don't like. On Sunday, Musk said he was sickened by years of slaughter in a stalemate that Ukraine will inevitably lose. Anyone who really cares, really thinks, and really understands, wants the meat grinder to stop. Musk wrote on X. Last week, the Trump administration paused all military aid and intelligence sharing with Ukraine. This right here. So you wonder why Zelensky is being treated like this small anyana boy, being forced to bend the knee, to kiss the ring. It's because they don't have the sovereignty to stand up for themselves. And it's seemingly every nation seems to be bending the knee to America, which is bringing us closer to a one world order, new world order. The president has been clear that he is focused on peace, which is a lie. We need our partners to be committed to that goal as well. We are pausing and reviewing our aid to ensure that it is contributing to a solution. A White House official said in a written statement to Business Insider so you're pausing aid to try to contribute to a solution. No, you are trying to intimidate these guys into giving you their minerals. Musk and the State Department did not respond to requests for comment from Business Insider. Next one, I'm going to read Vow News. After Poland spat, Musk vows Ukraine can keep Starlink. Billionaire industrialist and senior White House advisor Elon Musk vowed Sunday to maintain Ukraine's access to his Starlink satellite network after a fierce online clash with Poland's outspoken foreign minister. The United States has suspended military aid and intelligence sharing with Ukraine after a disastrous February 28 meeting between President Donald Trump and his Ukrainian counterpart Zelensky, and the White House can't say that first name. This has led to fears that Musk, a close Trump ally, might cut off Ukrainian access to his private Starlink communication system, which is used extensively by Kiev's frontline troops for battlefield communication. On Sunday, during exchanges on his own X social media platform, Musk promised that this would not be the case after an online clash with the Polish Foreign Minister Sikorski that drew in U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. To be extremely clear, no matter how much I disagree with the Ukrainian policy, Starlink will never turn off its terminals, Musk wrote. Lies. I'm simply stating that without Starlink, the Ukrainian lines would collapse as the Russians can jam all other communications. We would never do such a thing or use it as a bargaining chip. Well, you used a fake white farm genocide as a bargaining chip to get Starlink into South Africa and to bypass our laws. So that is also another lie by Elon Musk. Trump's administration is pressuring Zelensky to sign over much of Ukraine's mineral wealth to the United States and to agree to a ceasefire with Russia without clear security guarantees as a prelude to a peace deal. They just said they won't use Starlink as a bargaining chip, but now they're saying that they're pressuring Zelensky to hand over mineral wealth to the United States, or else they will abandon them in this war against Russia. Musk supports this position and warned Sunday that Ukraine's entire front line would collapse if he turned off Starlink for Kiev's forces, which have been battling a full-scale Russian invasion since February 2022. So you tell me, this man said he wouldn't do it, but here he's telling you what would happen if he did, which means if he does it, Ukraine immediately loses. So they're trying to act like they're fostering for peace. They're fighting for peace, when in actuality, they're not fighting for peace. They're fighting for their own interests in other people's wars and conflicts. This prompted Sikorski in a post on X to warn Starlinks for Ukraine are paid for by the Polish digitization ministry at the cost of about 50 million per year. The ethics of threatening the victim of aggression apart, if SpaceX proves to be an unreliable provider, we will be forced to look for other suppliers. Yeah, right. Musk responded with scorn, telling the Polish minister, "Be quiet, small man. You pay a tiny fraction of the cost, and there is no substitute for Starlink. This is imperialism. This is neo-colonialism right here. Colonial Games, guys." Washington's top diplomat, U.S. Secretary of State Rubio, was also, what a nice, look at this title, this top diplomat, right? Was also drawn into the exchange, accusing Sikorski of just making things up. All right, we just read something similar. No one has made any threats about cutting Ukraine off from Starlink. And say thank you, because without Starlink, Ukraine would have lost this war long ago and Russians would be on the border with Poland right now, he said. Very disrespectful. But what I'm trying to show you is this is what's going to happen to South Africa. Already, Our sovereignty was being threatened when they try to pull, when they were saying they're going to pull aid for an HIV treatment and all these things. So when they talk about budget cuts in America that Elon Musk is bringing about, no, what they're doing is they're just pressing the kill switch now to ensure that every single nation bows to the sovereignty and imperial power that is America. These are colonial games, guys. All right, I'm going to read another one from Kiev Independent. So let's get it straight um, from Ukraine, right? Ukrainian front line would collapse if Starlink is turned off, Musk claims. Very concerning. US tech billionaire Elon Musk claimed on March 9th that the entire front line in Ukraine would collapse if he shut off Starlink satellite internet services. Starlink internet terminals have played a crucial role in securing communications in the war in Ukraine. Last year, Ukraine said that approximately 42,000 terminals were in operation across the military, hospitals, businesses, and aid organizations. The US has threatened to cut off Ukraine's access to Starlink. We just saw that Elon Musk did threaten. He said, I'm not threatening, but then he made a threat. Access to Starlink if Kyiv doesn't agree to a critical minerals deal. This is what this is about. America just doesn't intervene because they're good people. That's what they sell themselves at. But the truth is that they use people's misfortune and their disadvantage as a bargaining chip to get what they want and to further make deals to oppress these people for a long time. Reuters wrote in late February, citing sources, Musk denied these reports back then. Of course, he denied them. He's a liar. The planned signing of the agreement was disrupted after a clash between U.S. President Donald Trump and President Zelensky in the Oval Office. In early March, Washington halted U.S. military aid and intelligence sharing for Ukraine in an attempt to push Kyiv to peace talks with Moscow. So direct foreign investment, aid from America means that you are no longer a sovereign nation. You are in actuality a colony. In a post on X, Musk, a close ally of Trump, proposed to impose sanctions on the top 10 Ukrainian oligarchs, especially the ones with mansions in Monaco. This was in reaction to a post by Republican Senator Mike Lee, who called for cutting funding for Ukraine. Think about that. How can you impose sanctions if you on a sovereign nation? You can't. You can only impose sanctions if there's dependency somewhere somehow. So these are just bullying tactics. On social media, users wrote that Musk ignores the fact that Russia is an aggressor and Ukraine is a victim in the all-out war. But of course, Russia is a powerhouse. You can't really mess with them like that. So Trump and America are attacking a weaker country. I literally challenged Russian President Vladimir Putin to, yeah, whatever, you would lose. Musk described Russia's full-scale war as years of slaughter and a stalemate, adding that Ukraine would inevitably lose. So then you're using a side that's already weaker to try to get their minerals. That is pure manipulation. Anyone who really cares, really thinks, and really understands wants the meat grinder to stop. As concerns about Starlink's availability escalated, Ukrainian officials said the country was working on alternatives to the US service. Now, why then would South Africa want to bring these guys to the country when other countries have been burnt and their sovereignty has been threatened? Why would South Africa want something like this to come? We're already battling colonialism where our colonizers own our land and our minerals. And now we're saying, let's give them more of our country, selling the country away. Colonial Games, guys. French satellite operator Eutelsat Communications is in talks with the European Union to possibly replace Starlink in Ukraine. And like Musk said, it's irreplaceable. There's no substitute for Starlink. So again, them having access to Africa is huge because they get minerals from the continent, which allows them to be able to strong arm people like this. Lastly, Musk, who Trump has tasked with eliminating fraud and waste from the government budget, has called for shutting down the U.S. Agency for International Development, an organization that provides vital humanitarian aid to Ukraine. He has also amplified Russian disinformation and mocked Zelensky for calling Ukraine an independent country. So anytime you hear Trump talking about misinformation or fake news, it means that that is the truth, and he's scared that people will find out. So let's look at the BBC and what they wrote about this as well. Musk and Rubio spar with Polish minister over Starlink in Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Elon Musk have clashed with Poland's foreign minister over the use of the tech billionaire Starlink satellite internet system in Ukraine. Musk said on X that Ukraine's entire front line would collapse if he turned the system off. Sikorsky responded saying this country paid for its use in Ukraine and a threat to shut it down would result in a search for another network. Rubio dismissed Sikorsky's claims and told him to be grateful, while Musk called him a small man. It's crazy. The exchange appeared to lead to Polish PM or Prime Minister Donald Tusk calling on his country's allies to show respect for their weaker partners rather than arrogance. Starlink system is part of SpaceX venture to provide high-speed internet to remote and underserved areas. It has been used extensively by the Ukrainian military. Sunday's exchange started when Musk posted that Starlink was the backbone of the Ukrainian army and that their entire front line would collapse if it turned it off. Sikorsky then responded saying that Poland was paying for the service. Starlink, okay, blah, 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 blah. Now, here's a breakdown of how Starlink actually works. All right, I'm just going to read this for you guys. Starlink is one of, if not the most reliable means of communication for Ukrainian troops. It is used for reconnaissance drones, which stream troops real-time battlefield data that allows for quick reactions to attacks. This compensates for Ukraine's disadvantages in manpower, as the military does not need to keep large numbers of soldiers along the entire defensive line. Drone footage also helps to direct artillery fire and identify targets for kamikaze drones. The requesting evacuation or providing the exact location of a target would also be much slower and more complicated without Starlink, as regular radio stations may be out of range, jammed, or compromised. So you tell me, is South Africa making the right decision? Or have they made the right decision in selling the country? You tell me.